my fellow Americans? Are we reaping our harvest of greed? Have we built our house on sinking sand? Why are we being ugly Americans?
Welcome to Update Friday, weekdays live. I'm CJ Holmes, your host for today's show and founder of Homeowners for Justice. And of course, there's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to be talking about. And so, a lot of it is not really new to us, but it's interesting to see it really start coming out, because that is the point. We need to push this information out into the mainstream so it cannot be ignored. And so we're going to be talking about mainstream articles where they talk about it's all rigged. It is. It's all rigged. I want to share with you 5 things the Federal Reserve will not talk about. We already are familiar with some of that, but we want to keep up to date with what is being put out into the mainstream media. I'm going to show you the response on the bank capital requirements bill that a couple of senators have introduced at the federal level. And of course, the SIGTARP report, that's a Special Inspector General TARP report. I have that. I'll show that to you so that you'll be able to review that entire report. Obviously, we're not going to read the whole thing, but there's just one paragraph in particular I want to harp on. And then we've got several that are joining us today with updates all over the place. An update on attorneys that are disbarred in California. Forged document presentation, have that, Julie share that with us today, hopefully. That'll be next Tuesday. Renee's going to come on and share with us about more securitization and how they have the nightmare she's having in her electric bill. We talked about electric bills securitization yesterday. And then Nancy's going to share with us the latest in her lawsuit, which is a win so far, and what the next steps are going to be. And then Lorraine wrote me a really long list of things that yesterday's question, the inquiry from yesterday, needs to think about. So if Lorraine can't join us because her brother is in the hospital, and truly we want her to speak with her family right now, I'll share her responses because she did email them to me. And then don't forget, tomorrow is the Petaluma Parade. I practiced yesterday on my little phone live streaming. I just walked to the little creek nearby and back, and that is under on a live stream under one of the icons, whatever I called it, I forgot now, sorry. So let's start with the fact that yesterday, let's remember, yesterday the options market was closed. Remember that? And I just had to share with you this comment, because a lot of comments were written, of course, and yes, I did get the market back online, but I thought this was a classic comment. It made me laugh because I don't even understand necessarily what the short verbs mean, like C1, what is C1, or VIX, what is that? You don't need to understand that to understand the sarcasm here. And it leads into it's all rigged. This is what was written yesterday. In a market in which nothing matters, and where all risk asset values are set by central planners, it took a while for those unlucky few who still actually trade to realize that the CBOE was offline all morning, hitting VIX and various other options products. After all, the CBOE just happens to be the world's largest options exchange. According to the website, currently the bulk of systems are operating normally, but according to traders on the ground, this is not true. And the CBOE also notes the C1 system is down. It begs the question, if the VIX is offline, just where is the actual VIX feed coming from? Frankly, who cares? Can the Fed just leak the closing S&P 500 pricing fix from the Liberty 33 market making desk so we can all just go home? This is more accurate than you'd care to think about. Because as we show you, Matt Taibbi, good old Matt Taibbi, Everything is rigged, and this is the biggest price fixing scandal ever. And this article is several pages. You know, Matt goes on, and he's great. He documents things. He's right. I wanted to read a couple of paragraphs. One's on page 3, and another one then would be on page 4. So, good morning. You've just joined with us for a minute. I'm sharing Matt Taibbi's information. And I wanted to read a comment. Just a moment here, guys. There we go. Okay. Let's see. I was looking for the comment that I wanted to read here. Well, it talks about all of the fraud and corruption, and how everything is manipulated. You know, how is some municipality in Cleveland or wherever going to know if it's getting ripped off? Come on. These days, now we all know we're getting ripped off. And the key here that this market is not, that unlike a more transparent market like the New York Stock Exchange, this market is completely non-transparent. And that's the point. The fact is these interest rate swaps are often based on privately calculated benchmarks. It's all insider stuff. Let's see if I can find the paragraph on page 4 I wanted to share with you guys. Sorry, the picture on the side that I had made a mental note of, now they changed the picture, so how can I find stuff in these long articles? Okay, here, this is it though. The idea that prices in a $379 trillion market could be dependent on a desk of about 20 guys in New Jersey should tell you a lot about the absurdity of our financial infrastructure. This is classic. It's all rigged. The insiders make all this stuff up, and they get away with it. The lawsuits against them are being dismissed. And this is the point. It is all about the insiders, and they're manipulating everything. And in the end, of course, we do have our concerns about the fact of where it's going to end, and it's going to hurt the people, and that's why we're starting to try to fight back. Here's the 5 things the Fed would rather you didn't talk about. One of the things, and this is a very fascinating little article because it has little pictures, so I'm going to go through them. But it says the Federal Reserve is a lot more transparent than it was 20 years ago. Now there's lively debates about the policy choices. But the Fed just doesn't seem to want to talk about stuff very much. So here are 5 of the gnarliest questions that the Fed seems to steer clear of. And the first one is the recession risk. Expansions don't end because of old age. It puts in the middle of the pack as far as the expansion duration since 1940 are concerned. But with interest rates already at 0 and the Fed is buying assets, what can the Fed do if there's a downturn? They're already at their max adjustment. So they don't want to talk about the recession risk. If we have another downturn, they don't have anything to do. Here's something else. The Fed wouldn't mind seeing some inflation. Are you ready? Since the late 70s, the Fed has emphasized the benefits to the economy of low and stable inflation and have set a 2% target. But this might not apply in current economic conditions of sluggish growth, high unemployment, interest rates are close to 0. So higher inflation, listen to this, would help raise wages and house prices? Except if they raise the interest rates, that's going to increase the cost of loans. So that would offset any rising prices, right? Because people have to borrow. And so they would say, well, the max price I can pay is X. And so house prices would have to come down to X to be sold. So some of this stuff doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. These people are making statements that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. So while the Fed officials have suggested they would tolerate inflation of 2.5%, they haven't really come out and embraced it. Here's something else. They don't want to talk about the no exit plan. Do you remember yesterday, a couple days ago, we talked about the fact is the senators and congresspeople are asking the Fed for for paperwork. I want you to explain to us your exit plan. How are you going to get out of, you notice over here in yellow, the $3 trillion balance sheet without ruining the economy? And so how is the Fed going to wind that down? The Fed isn't going to talk about that. This statement says the Fed has bungled prior turning points, and that was with only one policy tool to worry about. So the Fed is not going to answer that. They can ask all day long. They're not going to get an answer. And here, this is corporations are sitting on dead money. And this is a huge anomaly. And that is mega corporations, not all, and certainly not small businesses who are being pushed into ruin. But certain ones are sitting on large cash reserves. And what are they doing with it? Nothing. And so the Fed hasn't said anything about it. It's like nobody knows what to do with this. Here's something else. Stocks have moved higher. The QE is obviously feeding into that, but the Fed doesn't really want to discuss that. Seems leery of talking about how QE might be affecting the stock market. And so under what circumstances of asset marked excess would the Fed begin to be concerned? I don't hear you. They're not going to talk about it. So those are the 5 things, and of course they all affect us. And that is the point, isn't it? Now, I did want to point out, here's another article just recently written. Low inflation, low growth means the Fed must act. Well, must act to do what? They're talking about it, but people aren't coming up with a good solution. And so this is the point. What are we going to do about it? Which sounds so strikingly familiar, doesn't it? We've got all these problems over here, and the people are trying to fight, and there just doesn't seem to be any government kind of solution. But I believe that we're facing some real issues here. And I did want to mention that in the last time Obama met with bankers, they certainly did not talk about the things that you and I wish they'd talked about. They talk about the economy and immigration, but they did not talk about Wall Street reform, capital improvements. How about fraud, foreclosures? How about forged documents? Nope. And of course they meet with all the guys that are ruling the planet. Goldman Sachs, JP Chase, Bank of America. There you go. Now I wanted to play this briefly. This is a response from the banks about the capital requirements. Remember that 15% that the legislators are saying, hey, I got an idea. Let's make the big banks break themselves up. If they're too big, let's just up those capital requirements. Now, this guy, you got to appreciate who this guy is that's responding. He's from the Financial Services Forum. And here are the forum members. So when you listen to the president of the forum, he's not one of these guys. He's the president of this organization. He's the spokesperson that is willing to say these things that you're going to hear in a minute for the chairman of which is Goldman Sachs. The vice chairman of this forum is Bank of America. The forum members, Deutsche Bank, AIG, Citigroup, JP Chase, Credit Suisse, USB, HSBC, Morgan Stanley, Bank of New York Mellon, State Street Corporation, Fidelity Investments, MetLife, GE Capital, Prudential, Wells Fargo, Edward Jones, the Allstate Corporation. So just when you hear what he's saying, just remember that he's the mouthpiece for these guys. Okay? That makes it real clear.
Plan for the big banks. Rob Nichols is the president and CEO of the Financial Services Forum, a trade association whose members are the CEOs of the 19 largest banks in the United States. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, nice to see you, Maria. Thanks for inviting me.
Your reaction to Senator Vitter and this new bill?
Well, a couple of observations. Obviously, we have a similar goal that no institution should be too big to fail, and taxpayer money should never be used in the case of an institutional failure, ever. That's a goal we share. But I guess a couple of observations come to mind. One is the economic impact of this proposal, Marie. A number of analysts that have already trying to quantify the amount of lending that would be impacted and the credit availability that would be sucked out of the economy if something like this were to occur. We're seeing numbers that are really quite staggering. We're seeing maybe perhaps as much as $3 trillion or even $4 trillion of less lending and credit availability at a time, Maria, where there's a fair amount of economic fragility. We have a very slow recovery. That's been evidenced by the jobs numbers and the GDP numbers. So I think that's one area of caution that policymakers should take into account. I'd also observe that, of course, these institutions have gone a long way since 2008 to improve the conditions, to make them more safe, more sound, more secure, more stable. You look at capital. You touched on very elegantly on liquidity. That's important. In terms of passing stress tests and living wills, they've deleveraged. The balance sheets are more solid. So a lot of progress has been made. And then one piece that you didn't get to cover in your interview with the senator is the international aspect of this. One of the provisions in this draft bill that they unveiled today would be to abandon the Basel process. And I think, many think that probably we need more international cooperation given how global the capital markets are, particularly on resolution on some of these other issues.
Yeah.
And to turn our back on some of our international partners, I think many think is probably not the right thing for the United States to be doing right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up because the idea that there could be an international standard is so ludicrous, given the fact that you have so many local regulators all over the place coming up with their own ideas. But let me push back on you for a moment because
Sure.
I pushed back on the senator. The banks have gotten bigger in the past few years, right? So, is capital really the wrong way to go, or is it the right way to go? Wanting more capital, a bigger cushion, just at a minimum tell the world that they're not too big to fail, and in fact they can take care of any issues in a distressed environment. Wouldn't more capital help prevent another taxpayer bailout?
Capital is just, well, first of all, there should never be a taxpayer bailout ever again. These institutions, should any institution fail, we need to have a regime where they can just fail, the management is fired, everyone is wiped out. That's the policy goal we all share. In terms of what makes our institutions safe and sound and secure, we want financial institutions, Maria, we want a capital market that supports financial institutions of all sizes, small banks, community banks, regional banks, and large banks. And with regard to what the supervisory criteria should look like to make sure they're safe, there are a lot of pieces to that. It's capital requirements, which again, these have doubled since the crisis. It's liquidity. It's effective supervision, it's good management and internal controls, risk management and internal controls, and active and vigorous and rigorous boards. So capital is one important piece, and I fully agree, but it's not the silver bullet that will simply make us more safe. Now, one thing that was discussed today in the context of this bill is the regulatory pressures facing the community banks. And I will tell you, Maria, we have a lot of sympathy at the Financial Services Forum for these community banks. They are facing acute regulatory pressures, and they do need some relief. They shouldn't be subject to Basel III, is at least my own view. And so we do want to foster a capital market and a financial sector that allows community banks to thrive, regional banks to thrive, and large banks. I mean, these large banks do things. They have a unique value that, with great respect to the Bank of England and Cliffs, they're not able to do some of the same things that Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Bank of America are able to do.
Are you expecting spin-offs from some of these companies as a result of what we're hearing out of Washington?
I think it's too early to say that. We'll see where the legislation goes. But I would say is these banks over the last 4 years have become more safe, more secure. The market has forced them to make changes. You're looking at, while some have grown, some have changed their business, their operations in a way that the market has rewarded. So we'll see. But we basically, listen, we never want to have taxpayer dollars ever again used in a bailout. Never. But this legislation, I just think, is the wrong way to go.
All right, we'll keep watching that. Thanks very much for weighing in. Really appreciate it, making it so clear for all of us to follow. I want to get more.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally, totally. Oh, this is not the way to go. And I just have to comment on a couple of things that were said. Never, ever again do they want a taxpayer bailout. Well, that's because, let's never forget, they're going to take your money out of the accounts next time. So they don't need taxpayer bailout. They've got the accounts in the banks. That's where they're going to get their bail-in. So remember that. Another thing they said that the capital requirements is not the silver bullet. I do agree. No, it's not a silver bullet. However, I do believe that it should be included with stopping the banks that make loans from gambling on Wall Street. Let's reenact something like Glass-Steagall. Let's separate up these institutions again so they can't just be such mega institutions. I believe that they should stop gambling. So when he's saying that these last several years, the banks have become more safe and secure, that is absolutely a bald-faced lie. The fact is, in these last 4 or 5 years, they have like quadrupled the credit default swaps and the derivatives on their books. They have put this entire planet in such incredible risk. I do not know how he can stand there and say that, other than the fact that he's being paid as the president of this organization by the mega banks to stand up and say that. So let's get it really straight. Who's saying what and why? You need to look at these motives. Real quickly, there's the forum members again. These links will be, of course, in the comment section. This is not a good sign. I need to play this real quickly. This is about loans defaulting, the modifications on HAMP loans. I really want you to hear
Underwater
this quickly.
homeowners who were given help with loan modifications are still defaulting and in rather large numbers. Diana Olick joins us from Washington with more. That's not good news.
No, it's not. And unfortunately, it's not a big shock either, Sue. We warned about the structure of these government loan modifications from the start. And now the Inspector General for the TARP says homeowners are redefaulting on these so-called HAMP modifications, quote, at an alarming rate. 46% of HAMP modifications from 2009 redefaulted, as did as much as 38% from 2010. SIGTARP recommended that Treasury research and analyze the causes of redefaults and create an early warning system to help borrowers. Now, as a reminder, HAMP was the Treasury's mortgage bailout launched in early 2009. It was supposed to help 3 to 4 million borrowers avoid foreclosure using $75 billion worth of TARP money. Now, just 862,000 homeowners are now in permanent HAMP modifications. 312,000 have redefaulted. And so far, Treasury has spent less than 2%, or just $7.3 billion of TARP funds on housing programs, again, according to SIGTARP. All right, so why are they redefaulting? Well, mortgage analyst Mark Hansen says these mods make legacy subprime loans look sane. That's a quote. They say they have sky-high debt-to-income ratios, sky-high loan-to-value, and the borrowers have low credit scores. Hansen says these modifications turn people into underwater renters of their own house. They prevent homeowners from getting out of debt, and that is what's needed for a durable recovery. Now, banks themselves have turned away from the HAMP program, doing proprietary loan modifications on their own with principal reduction at a rate 200% greater than HAMP. Bank mods are up 55% from a year ago. HAMP modifications down 31%, according to the OCC.
Okay, so there you have it. And this is the problem. People have contacted me and said, I got a HAMP loan, but they didn't reduce my principal. And so they're still underwater. They're going to constantly be underwater, which basically means the person will never, ever be able to sell it until it's completely paid off without selling short. So that makes people give up, particularly when we all know that the valuation was just a massive bubble, mainly due to the fake loans. They stopped underwriting. They just threw money at it. It wasn't their money. They threw credit at it, would be a more accurate statement. So the point is, people are defaulting. What the government has done is not working. And I do believe that we ought to consider trying to get our solutions, get more news over how we could tweak, how we could change the government programs. It's still outrageous to me that only 2% of the money in the TARP, which the senators and the Congress, they expected that to go to the people. And that hasn't gone to the people. And I swear we can put the blame right at the Secretary of the Treasury's feet and the banks. I did want to talk about the Inspector General. This is the Office of the Special Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program for TARP. This is SIGTARP. Here's the document. You're going to have that link. I wanted to read one paragraph in it, which I've highlighted here. This is in the executive summary. And it says, when the American people recognized and pulled the financial system that was teetering on collapse and passed the TARP program, America's commitment, the people, came with an overriding condition. The American public was investing in the promise of lasting financial stability and sustainable long-term solutions to the causes of a crisis. We, the people, were investing to end the threat that a single too-big-to-fail firm could sink the whole economy because of its poor decisions and risky choices and direction by the CEO to make more money. The people were investing listen to this, loans to small businesses and mortgage relief to homeowners could ignite millions of personal financial recoveries and restore prosperity to our communities and our economy. Now, if you're like me, this is the first time I've ever heard that was the point of TARP. That it would actually give you a loan, refinance your upside down loan, give loans to small businesses, mortgage relief, because of course if it had...
Nancy Abert.
Oh, hi Nancy. Just a moment. So people are joining the conference call. That's a good thing. We'll be with them in just a minute. And so the point is that TARP was supposed to do this, and it has not been allowed. Only 2% of these funds allowed for you and me to refinance upside down loans, to give loans to small businesses, has so far been spent. And let's see, 5 years later, give me a break. And if you're like me, if you don't understand this, then you're not as mad as I am. If you understand it, you're getting angry. I'm really angry. I mean, it's aggravating, and I flip between getting angry and trying to get even. How can we make this better for ourselves? So what I wanted to talk about today, we're going to enjoy some folks that have joined us. And the first one I've asked to share with us is Ronald O'Donnell, explaining, he's shared with me, evidently just at the end of March, there are some disbarred attorneys, some information that he's gotten about attorneys in California. So Ronald, you're on the air. Can you hear us?
I sure can. I'm toning down your, I can not have the echo.
Oh, okay, the live stream?
Yes. Can
Yes.
you hear me now?
Yes, hear you fine.
Oh. Well, hey, everybody. How are you doing? It's a beautiful day. I'm glad that you're sitting here and that you're listening to C.J. Holmes' Homeowner for Justice show, because I think it's the best catalyst that we have here in America in order to communicate. But I'm going to make this brief. I want to give you a little information that just became a public matter by the State Bar of California Hearing Department in Los Angeles regarding disbarment of Thomas J. Rochard, Esquire, who was his office in Mission Viejo, California. And in his matter, he was disbarred for 3 years. And every person that gave him an average of $3,500, and they have a list here of 64 people, their money was returned to them. He was given that money to go ahead and defend their foreclosure and to apply for the modification program. Now, why do I want you to know what I'm talking about here? You think everything's fine. The only thing that the State Bar of California missed was that these people were thrown out of their homes. And they didn't get legal representation. They are now gone. And they missed a couple other things, too. It kind of makes me angry. Hi, Carrie. What makes me angry is this guy didn't just do these 64 people in California. They did every state in the union. They convicted this guy on 64, that they, the low-hanging fruit of the tree here in California. There's a list of them here, and I'll provide this to anyone that emails me, and I will get it to you. But what's missing is, and our example, my example, is Carmina in Colorado Springs, California. We stopped her for closure. Once this became available to her, she had no clue where her money went, where the attorney went. In fact, she gave her money to Precision Law Group, and when she tried to find out who Precision Law Group was, they would not name the attorney. Now, why? Why?
So,
The reason why is the State Bar of California and all the bars across the country are a labor union. That's all they are. They are a labor union, just like the cops have their labor union, the firemen have their labor union, but the attorneys have the State Bar of California. They try to tell you that they're looking out for you. No. When you make a complaint to the State Bar, which I suggest everyone do, but all they're doing is then they're covering their union members because they pay fees of about $1,500 a year. So what are we up against as homeowners? We're up against not just the banks, but the banks hire the attorneys. We're up against the State Bar. We're up against the system.
So Ronald, you're telling me, if I hear you correctly, that these attorneys, when they are under investigation, there's a blackout of that information to the public.
Up until the time they're disbarred. Thank you, CJ, for helping me here.
Okay, so that means like some...
Investigation on this matter, which, by the way, they only went after 65 of his clients, and he has, it turns out, over thousands.
What? So, what?
And they only did California. They didn't do the other 50 states. The United States, if you will. I'm sorry, because there's a territory called Puerto Rico that I didn't include, and that might be a state someday. But
okay, so let me get this straight. This attorney that was, the news was just released that he'd been disbarred and had done all this fraud.
March 27th.
Okay. And so during the time when they started the investigation, which could have been months or years, actually.
It was 2011. It was over 2 years ago.
Okay, so
Kept what they call under seal. I have a copy of it here. It became a public matter after he was disbarred 2.5 years later, which means that the 2.5 years that went by while they were investigating, the State Bar of California was investigating this attorney and this case.
And was he still taking money at that
He never told
time?
any of the people that were losing their homes that there was even an investigation going on.
Oh my goodness. And nobody can get that information. So everyone is in the whole country is a sitting duck while he's under investigation.
On the sidewalk, and they never got a copy of this public matter being released only a month, not even a month ago, 3 weeks ago. This is where I got involved with Carmina.
Right.
Colorado Springs.
And so
she found this out. She gave this to the judge in her case, and he stopped the foreclosure.
Because who she hired to help
He wanted
her
you.
was under investigation.
It was under investigation, but under seal, which means that they did not disclose it to the public for 2.5 years. State Bar, that this guy had defrauded hundreds, maybe thousands of people. They only listed 64 people from one checking account that he had taken funds in. Carmina's account was deducted from a credit card. They never even investigated those deductions.
Oh my goodness. Oh my, and of course.
Poor people like Carmina are, she's one of the last ones. She's still in her home. But for the last 2.5 years, there's got to be hundreds of people
Yes.
that the State Bar of California sat there and knew that these people were getting thrown out of their homes, and that was not important enough for them. They were protecting their bar-paying member. They blacked out the whole entire thing, and it's a matter of record now because they were forced to go ahead and publish this. But they sure in hell waited long enough, didn't they?
Now, Ronald, if you say now it's a matter of... So let me just summarize to make sure I heard what you said. It sounds to me like what you said was the state bar, California State Bar...
Right, I'm looking at the document.
Actually knew all of these people because they had the checking accounts, they had credit card charges.
Legally.
They could have known the hundreds of people that got scammed by this guy.
And they didn't notify the people.
And
they still
didn't,
haven't.
And they still have not notified the people that this guy has now been disbarred. He was under investigation for 2 years.
Were affected.
Oh my goodness. So how...
You on my right hand to God.
Ronald.
I'm going to send you... I sent you the documents. I don't know. I sent you so many of you.
I know. I'm so flooded with stuff. I apologize again. I just simply cannot keep up.
I sent it to Ken.
Okay, so here's the point.
Number of people.
But even these documents do not identify all the people that got cheated, right?
It only shows 64 people.
But not even like Carmina, who used a credit card.
Well, Carmina wasn't on it, but she was one of them. She
Right.
sent me her... I insisted. I said, Carmina, before I even go any further with you, show me that you paid this Precision Law Group, and she sent it to me.
Right, she sent her credit card charge.
That she paid that firm and that attorney.
Okay, so let me get this straight. This sounds as if it should be national news that all of these people that paid this attorney in that law group should be able to do something. What can they do? Can they get their foreclosures reversed? Can they sue the California State Bar?
The information that needs to be placed in their quiet title action. Let's put it this way. An attorney is an officer of the court. They lost their homes due to actions and conduct of the court, not the bank.
Right.
Not enough we got the banks we're fighting. Now, this is evidence that we're not fighting just banks. We're fighting the judge sitting there right in front of us.
Right, and we're fighting their, if you will, their union organization.
Yeah, the union, their labor union is what it's called.
The California State Bar.
They have their tax status as with the Internal Revenue Service. They're a labor union.
Oh, boy.
They're exempt from taxes.
Wow.
We got a big battle here. Remember I filed the Office of Attorney General complaint with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes.
I sent this to him because I have a couple cases in Pennsylvania that this one attorney, violated homeowners in Pennsylvania, which I'm working on.
Right.
Do you know what that Attorney General, let's see, they don't have a civil rights attorney now, or office there because it's vacant. So they turned me over to the chief of health care to handle foreclosures. Do you believe what I'm talking to you about?
What? This
don't have anybody there that handles the foreclosure crisis.
Okay.
They have an acting chief who is also the chief of health and social services that handles the mortgages there. I'm talking about inept.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what he said to me when I told him this, and I sent him the documentation?
Right. What did he say?
You wonder why I get angry. He said, what are you, a conspirator?
Yeah, we're conspirator theorists.
You know what we are now.
Yes, of course.
You sound
because
like one of those conspiracy theorists.
That's right.
Wait a minute. Did
That's
anybody tell you that there were almost 200,000 people thrown out of their homes in the state of Pennsylvania?
Right. Right.
What part of that is a conspiracy? That I'm reporting it to you.
That's right. And that attorneys are scamming people and
That's
getting
what
disbarred.
He didn't want to hear the part that it's the attorneys,
Yeah.
the mills, the foreclosure mill attorneys, and I specified who they are.
Exactly.
One in Philadelphia that I specified, one in Harrisburg, one in Pittsburgh, all 3 districts in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I said, they are illegally foreclosing on grandma and grandpa, and you're throwing them out on the sidewalk, and you're telling me that that's just what they do here in Pennsylvania.
That's right.
And because I'm from there originally, you know that.
That's right.
I said, and I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
Why don't you ask those couple 100,000 people that are homeless now
Yeah.
how big this conspiracy is?
Yeah. Well, and see, Ronald, this is the problem. The people, first off, it's really, they don't want to hear it for a whole bunch of reasons. And one main reason is if they actually did understand or start to recognize that what you're saying, what the truth that we're bringing to the public, if they really started to comprehend that, then that means they'd have to, one, do something about it. And they don't know what to do about it. And it also means they'd be fighting against those powerful. That's right. That's right.
San Bernardino. Okay, our local paper here is the Sun Sentinel. Okay? So I contacted the Sun Sentinel, and I said, would you at least publish this public matter filed March 27, 2013? And he said, listen, attorneys get disbarred all the time, and we couldn't make a living if we published.
The paper said they wouldn't make a living if they published
disbarment?
disbarment?
Newspaper here. I'll publish it.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not news. Do you see what I mean, CJ? It's not news. We have what we call Tent City right behind Ontario International Airport, right here in San Bernardino County, and I am so angry. Do you know why? Because now they're asking people, they have police officers at the front of Tent City, because there's hundreds and hundreds of people with tents there, and you have to prove that you lived in San Bernardino County before you became homeless in order to set up a tent in Tent City.
Oh, that's insane.
Show them what county you're from. So if you're from Riverside County, you can't move into Tent City.
Ronald, we're going to have to go. This is just outrageous.
I'm gone.
Hey, wait a minute. Wait. Before you go.
I'm already done.
Is it possible?
So angry.
Ronald, is it possible for you to get some pictures of this tent city for us?
Oh, I'll go down there today. I'll go down,
Oh, my goodness. I tell you, I've been threatening. I've been so busy. But
to the Attorney General in this state, too. How about the pictures of Tent City in Sacramento? You didn't know there's one there, too?
I have heard one mainstream article about it. And I've been threatening. I think pretty soon I'm going to be hitting the street with my little phone and live stream. I practiced yesterday, and I'm going to go get an extra battery so that I can, live stream for quite some time. I'm going to try on the Petaluma Parade tomorrow. And the fact, this is where the Occupy is making a big bankster on a float, and they're, the people in chains are going to be pulling this float. I think it's really graphic. So I really want to go down there and practice. But I have actually heard myself say, I feel that maybe I should be traveling around the state live streaming these tent cities. This is absolutely
CJ, I'll
awful.
send you money to help you.
Well,
I'll ask other people that I know, and they have money. They'll send you some money to help you.
Thank
if you want to do that, I'll help support that effort.
Thank you.
I mean, we can get together, and everybody can send a 5 or a 10 or whatever, and you'll get, I'll broadcast it nationally.
Thank you. Well, see, this is the point. We need to somehow break through the media blackout. It is just absolutely outrageous.
They're not going to help us.
No.
To do it through the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Ronald, thanks for sharing. Oh, my goodness. Okay, next.
You want to copy of this?
No.
I'll type in my email address, and I'll send it to you for free. I already scanned it. All I have to do is just reply to you. So I'm going to put it in right now, the email address.
Okay.
And anybody that wants it,
yeah.
I'll never get on this show and not be able to back up what I just said.
Exactly. We do our very level best to make sure that what we're sharing is actually backed up by some kind of proof.
I have it. I sent it to everybody. Not everybody. I
Yeah.
sent it to like 7 or 8 people 2 weeks ago. And that's why I had Carmina come on and say it.
Right.
You know, is articulate, but she's looking at her side of the issue. She used it, and she was successful in stopping her foreclosure.
Well, that is totally fabulous. And I wanted to share, as I was going to share later, but, you know, it's right here in the conversation. Yesterday, I mentioned on live stream that while I was prepping, I got, somebody calls and says, my auction is today. Can you help me? And they had gotten the OCC complaint, but it wasn't working because they had just evidently sent it or talked to the foreclosure trustee mill about it. And that organization said, we're going to wait for Chase. We don't know anything about that. And Chase says, we don't know anything about that. And so they were just going to go ahead and foreclose. And so real quickly, while I was trying to prep, I just sent her an email and I said, you write to them and you get legal department and you fax it to them and you say, according to the California Bill of Rights, now and this is true, every entity involved in the foreclosure, so that's the foreclosure trustee mill, that's the servicer, and that's the bank. They are all individually and severally liable. It means that if the foreclosure trustee mill does something wrong, that the bank and the servicer can be held liable for that. Okay? So all three of you are going to be held liable for wrongful foreclosure, and this is a wrongful foreclosure, and I'm going to sue you and win under the Homeowner Bill of Rights. So she put that in writing, and guess what happened? The auction was postponed.
We have to do, and I'm saying to everyone.
Yes, we have to start threatening these people with the truth so that we can hold them off until we can get some good legal standing to fight them.
Well, we have legal standing. We have to hold them off because there are, times are changing, and the momentum's getting bigger,
right?
And they are getting attacked personally.
Yes.
I have 2 attorneys. I'm bringing one in from Philadelphia. I'm bringing one in from Harrisburg, the heads of their foreclosure mills in Pennsylvania. I'm coming in from California, and we're having our showdown in Norvelt, Pennsylvania, a town population of 1,300.
That's so you're going to sue the attorneys of the foreclosure mills? Yes.
For fraud.
Yes.
For introducing false, fraudulent, and illegal documents into county records.
And you've got an attorney that's going to do that?
Not as an attorney.
Right.
As an individual, because it doesn't say you have to be an airline pilot.
Right.
Be guilty of fraud. It doesn't say that you have to be a doctor or a lawyer or an attorney or an Indian chief.
Right. Oh, keep us updated on that, Ron.
It's a fraud.
Oh my goodness, because I do believe that's the key. We go after the people individually, personally.
Exactly.
And then they're not going to want to represent the banks. Oh.
Well, they can go to jail then.
Yeah, and that too, of course.
No one's ever challenged them.
Oh, keep us posted about that. Oh, keep us posted.
I'm working on it.
Okay, thank you, and I've got you down for keeping us posted on that. We want to hear an update. I mean, literally every week, even if there's nothing to say, just say,
people there that
tell us
talk,
what's happening.
Shut up and hang up. And I love all of you people that are trying so hard, and God bless you all. I'm getting off the phone.
Thanks, Ronald. We love you too, and we truly this is an effort that we're all joining together to try to fight back against the banks. And here is let's welcome Julie to our effort. Julie, I think you're on the air. Is that you, Julie? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Ah, great. This is sort of working. I'm practicing getting my conference call set up, and people can call in when they're ready to call, and then we can have them share on the show. So giving everybody greater flexibility. So Julie, your effort takes place on Tuesday, right?
That's right.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about why you're doing this, a little bit about your situation, and what you hope to achieve.
Well, it's kind of humorous, like the last person that was speaking. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous document fraud through and through. After doing a doc research of my property, there was a robo-signer that signed on the deed, and she also notarized the deed with someone else's stamp. That was just one thing.
Yep.
You know, it goes on and on. So we're going to the clerk, the recorder, the council in my county and letting them know that this is all fraudulent because, in fact, the fraudulent trustee that took over for Wells Fargo in 2005 without my permission or signature as the grantor, they sold it on April 2nd. And I was there. And the sheriff and the police didn't respond, and they're right next door to where the court steps were. So everybody's just done a fine job for me.
Well, in other words, the system is working well for those that own the system.
Correct.
And-
Very well.
Yeah.
My
And
house has been sold 3 times, and 3 times, where did that money go?
right.
They kept it. And
Right.
I was still paying my $32.80 mortgage payment, for God's sake, at 7.1.
Right. See, and can't get a refinance, can't get a principal reduction, can't get anything to work for
A
the
year
people.
and a half I worked on a loan mod.
Yeah. Yes. I've got people like yesterday, 4 years.
I went everywhere. I
Yes.
unturned every stone, and now I'm ready to fight.
Right. Good. Okay. So on April 30th, that's next Tuesday at 8:30 in the morning, and I've got the address there. I'll read it in case you can't see this or you're just listening. It's 3501 Civic Center Drive, room 329 in San Rafael. This is, by the way, San Rafael is where the public banking conference is going to be in June. So it's the same little city right there in Marin County, San Rafael. And 8:30 in the morning, the Board of Supervisors opens up. And so are you expecting to just use like a 3-minute presentation for yourself?
Correct.
Okay.
They all have certified dossiers of the whole thing, along with all the supporting documents of all of the codes that we're bringing against them.
Have you already given this information to them so you'll just be talking about it, or do you plan to present this information as brand new at this meeting?
They got it in certified mail this morning.
All right. So she's prepping them. So you sent certified mail to all the supervisors, your documents, what you're going to present on Tuesday, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And that's fabulous. Would it be possible for you to email that to us?
I could email some of it.
That's fine.
probably.
Yeah, that's fine.
Of course, I'm so excited about this. I'll give you the whole thing. I just can't wait.
Oh, no, that's fine. And I'm only thinking if you would email it to me, I will print it white out, personal information, and scan it so that people can actually see the package that you've put together. I mean, we're all sharing and trying to learn, and what is going to really make a difference, if anything. We keep trying. That's all I was thinking when I was asking about
it
that.
is public. The public is able to go into the county clerk's office and get all of your
Right.
board of supervisors, everybody's oath of office.
Oh, that's
And,
true.
Begin there. Really.
Oh, so your your presentation, Julie, includes the oath of office that's on record. It's a recorded document.
Correct. Some of them not even certified. They were sworn in and never certified.
Oh, I can't wait to see your presentation. I think we're going to make this more powerful, guys. They have a recorded oath of office. Let's go get those.
I really hope that everyone comes and sees this. We've worked really, really hard on this. And this is like the first time in Marin County that something like this is going to be exposed. So, I don't want to talk about it too much to give it a jinx because I'm so proud of what we've done.
Well, hey, I plan to be there. I plan to live stream this, and hopefully by Tuesday I'll have these documents so that we can upload them to the internet and include them in our as a link in the I'm thinking in the homeowner justice website, putting it under suspicious documents link. I think that's number 6, and That way people can see what you're doing, because I believe, Julie, you'll be the first one actually doing this at the Board of Supervisors meeting. Others have given forged documents and information to the board, and I've been in front of our supervisors in Sonoma County saying, trying to get them to support the Homeowner Bill of Rights. That was last year. But I have not submitted forged documents or seen anybody else do that in front of the board. So this is you're breaking new ground.
Hey, I was a 99 weekers of unemployment. I've gone through loan modification, lies there, foreclosure, my house being sold. Just the topping on the cake for me.
Yes. I swear most everybody listening and most of the people in this country would identify their lives have been turned upside down, ruined, destroyed in ways they had never expected or could even, some of them can hardly even talk about. It's still too traumatic. And it is just truly outrageous. We thank you so much for being a lead dog in this.
Yeah, I'm
Mush.
proud of myself.
Mush. Come on, let's get these sleds moving. Thanks, Julie, for sharing. And we do look forward to joining. If any of you, I know that some have already contacted me and said, where's this meeting and when? Because they do want to come. There are lots of people that could make it to Marin in San Rafael on Tuesday morning.
Awesome.
So let's try to give her as much support as we can, guys. Thanks, Julie.
Happy.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye, CJ. Keep up the
Okay.
good work.
Thanks for joining us. Hi, this is CJ. Is this Nancy? Nancy, you're on the air?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi, there you are. Okay, Nancy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your lawsuit and what is going on, because it is truly pretty amazing to me.
I was just on the radio.
Oh, she's just fixing her live stream.
Real quick. Sorry, give me just 1 second here. I just have to find where I had my notes.
Okay.
A real quick summary.
Okay, here's Nancy. We've got her picture up on the screen, and we're waiting for her to update us on her lawsuit. She's got some massive thing going on that she's actually got a recent win in. And I'm real excited. I'm trying to showcase these because it's worth fighting for, and it's real tough when you're home alone and you think it's all on you or it's all on an attorney. I don't believe you've had an attorney yet working with you, have you, Nancy?
No, I haven't. What I faced over the last roughly 2 years of my life is a situation where I've been trying to work with Wells Fargo Bank in regards to the situation where I was, first off, on March 26, 2011, my home was struck with a catastrophic mudslide.
Oh.
The same day as the Capitola flooding, and my property was caught up in regards to the Governor Jerry Brown's request for a declaration of emergency. I was one of 44 properties collectively brought forward for FEMA funding. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to qualify for FEMA, as I found out if your home's already upside down and you have no equity, there's no FEMA, which was quite surprising and quite startling to me.
What?
Was another takeaway of this unusual situation. So subsequently, I turned to Wells Fargo. It literally was the month, like I called them literally on the Monday following the mudslide on a Saturday, and I asked for assistance. I asked for a payment holiday. Across the line, Wells Fargo refused any of my requests. I hired a private attorney in May of that year to help me. Her name's Pamela Simmons, and she was actually even unable to gain Wells Fargo's attention. Wells Fargo aggressively put my home right into foreclosure, even though I had a HAMP modification on a 45-day review and a confirmation of that on June 28th. They went ahead and threw my home into foreclosure on July 5th. And subsequently, I've been fighting Wells Fargo and asking them in a number of methods and manners to try to actually simply rescind the foreclosure. And they surprisingly rescinded the foreclosure, which I still don't know why.
on June 24th of 2012. So almost a year later, just out of the clear blue sky, they decided to rescind the foreclosure, though they didn't notify me of it. It wasn't until CJ and I had a discussion and she pulled my mortgage documents were we able to even confirm that rescission. Which also then, thank God for CJ, she actually helped me to see that within those documents was the pure case of fraud perpetrated by the trustee, who was not the trustee of record at the time they so aggressively put my home into foreclosure. So I had a case, and I have a case of quite simply black and white fraud, straight up. So Wells Fargo didn't stop there. They continued to say that they wanted to come out to my property and they wanted to build their own retaining wall on my property. And I said, well, don't you have to get my permission to do that first? And there was a long pause and a meek, yes, by their underwriter. So they were actually still trying more than 18 months later to try to basically take the property from me, continue to threaten me with foreclosure even though they had rescinded it. During this time period, I also had two open complaints with the OCC and also with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Neither one of the two agencies was able to help me at all, unfortunately. All they could do was basically keep trying to work with Wells Fargo, and they were completely unable to come to any level of resolution or compromise, any real level of success, except the fact that the complaints do put Wells Fargo on notice, and they do have to be much more agreeable, or at least on the appearance of being agreeable. I found out at the end of December of this last year that I called the title company because I was quite concerned because I kept getting these very strange and threatening letters from Wells Fargo suggesting they were going to put my home back into foreclosure. Because I think what they realized is that when they filed their initial foreclosure, it was ineffective because they had used the wrong title company. It was not the title company of record. So long story made short, on January 28th of 2013, I sued Wells Fargo Bank N.A. et al. And Fidelity National Title Company in Superior Court of Santa Cruz County. I filed on 11 causes of action, and 2 days ago, I survived a demurrer action. It was a motion that was put in front of the courts very aggressively by Wells Fargo Bank. Our first case management meeting was not to happen until May 28th. Wells Fargo aggressively jumped ahead on March 30th and filed for the demurrer.
They do that.
It was a very, very aggressive maneuver. They moved it. They tried to move up the and basically demand that I present all evidence.
Yeah, I've heard this before. They try to shortchange and chop it off and hurt the people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that I ended up having to present in court. I found myself in an awkward situation in the fact that if you do receive a demurrer action, for anybody on the call, you must have that in court, generally many, many court days before the actual hearing. You need to file opposition papers. And the opposition papers have to cite very exactly to your complaint. So I failed to actually realize 5 days ahead of the court date that I should have filed the demurrer papers 9 days ahead of the court date. So now I needed to actually just simply show up in front of the judge and ask for basically, if you will, the mercy of the court, that I did not understand acting as my own attorney, and that I had called Wells Fargo Bank's attorney and asked for a continuation, a stipulation and a continuation, and they declined. So you showed up in court, and long story made short, I ended up surviving through the process and received a continuation. 8 of my causes of action, 8 out of the 11 have survived. And
Excellent.
Wells Fargo was even aggressive enough in court to ask that the judge put through I believe it's some type of court order by that initial request, that I could not add any of their causes of action to my complaint. But all I could do was amend with no addition of any action. And the judge seemed very surprised, if not like by scowling at the Wells Fargo attorney, as far as that was a very aggressive request. But now at this point, the great news is that I can move forward into full discovery.
Yes. Now tell me just a little bit.
Wells Fargo.
You meant, before we talk about discovery real quick, you mentioned you sued Fidelity National Title. So did they reply? Where are they in this case?
Well, Fidelity National Title is listed as a co-defendant.
Okay.
And the interesting understanding that I have now, and this wasn't because I particularly understood all of the entire situation at the time I filed the lawsuit, but I do now, is that if you're going to sue the bank, you must also sue the title company.
Why?
The co-defendant.
Why?
And that is simply because they are linked implicitly within the action that drives the foreclosure. Right? The bank can't act alone. They actually have to have a trustee that actually
That's right.
processes the various documents.
Right, and just a minute, for those listening, that's
What's happening is that
yeah.
Fidelity National Title, in my case, the co-defendant, had the case of fraud in black and white. Really didn't have a leg to stand on. This was a public document. It's
Right.
a clear case that they used robo-signing. Wells Fargo, surprisingly, even in the demerit, did not argue the robo-signing. They fell on their sword on that one.
Interesting. Well, they must think it doesn't matter.
Jones.
Or they just don't want to, they hope it'll go away and they can get the judge to rule in their favor anyway. So, and just for people viewing, for clarification, we're talking about a lawsuit in a deed of trust state, a non-judicial foreclosure. And in those states, it's about half and half. On non-judicial deed of trust states, a trustee, that's why we call them the foreclosure trustee mill. They have to file the paperwork to foreclose. And so what you're saying, Nancy, is that the trustee, in this case it was Fidelity National Title for you, then they would be involved in this wrongful foreclosure lawsuit because they were a trustee and had filed false forged documents, correct? Something like that?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. And so now they have not responded at all. They're letting the bank take the brunt of this.
Well, surprisingly, just yesterday, I received a letter from the defendant, Fidelity National Title Company, with a list of demands for production of documents and things to plaintiff Nancy Beth Amert. And it's called Set 1. And it actually goes on a demand for documents that I will need to actually bring to Fidelity National Title offices, attorneys' offices in Walnut Creek, California. And they want this for their inspection.
So
and this is where, again, not being an attorney and representing myself,
right.
where I, at this point I'm asking for help for anyone
Right.
who's on the call to help to see if now that I'm into a case where I have the ability to potentially survive the foreclosure, I need an attorney who can help me to determine what would be the next action in regards to discovery with Wells Fargo Bank. This is what they've avoided at all costs, and I, as a single person, have amazingly survived this process through the courts.
We're so amazed with you, Nancy. Good job. You just keep doing this. So the call goes out. She needs professional help. Is there someone listening that either knows of an attorney that can really help her in this next effort, this next step? Congratulations and good for you. And this is the point. The people are pushed to where they have to start fighting back. And this is, I think, the message. We need to get really serious and we need to get really firm and we need to really fight back. You can't just expect, and anyone that does, expecting the powers that be are going to help you, you're going to be sadly disappointed. No, there's nobody coming to help us. That is the truth. We have to round up the help ourselves. And I'm really mulling over this, live stream in the tent cities. We need to get the media something to break through. So, and truly, responses like you've gotten, Nancy. This is why I want this information out. I want it shared. It's possible. It's possible to win against the banks. And Ronald just shared this today. I didn't even know they're suing these foreclosure mill attorneys personally. I believe that's really, really powerful. I believe, Nancy, maybe that could apply for what you're doing. Not in this case, but, as I mull these things over and we think about them, let's strategize. I know that there's a lot of comments going on during the shows and stuff. We just really need to figure out a strategy that's going to work for the people. So when do you have to respond?
May I add too
Yeah.
that I was able to file a default judgment against Fidelity National Title. I was able to file the notice of default against them for over $1.5 million in damages.
Now,
They're coming back to me with this additional letter saying, give me the evidence regarding your damages. But now they are unable to respond. They are unable to do anything else but simply argue the amount of the judgment that I'm likely to receive.
So how did you file that notice of default? How did you do that? In court?
To the Santa Cruz Law Library, and I have to encourage people who are on the call. Again, I'm not a trained attorney. My background is all in finance. I've never actually stood in front of the only time I've ever been in court was a small claims hearing. So I was quite nervous to end up in Superior Court representing myself, having never even really been in a courtroom.
Right.
So I found the courage and learned the really basic protocol of how to address the judge, how to basically be able to stand and provide the information that the judge was looking for in the most simplistic of forms. And then also to use the local law library. In Santa Cruz County, it's in the courtroom, it's at the courthouse in the basement. And they have been incredibly helpful in regards to just simply pointing me to the right books to read. So I've been reading. I created my own complaint. I filed it. It cost roughly about $400 to file it was all. And it put in motion an action against the bank that they would need to respond to. Of course, the danger is if you do not follow through very carefully, they can turn around and try to sue you for the cost of their lawyers.
Right.
But a lot of times what I found too is that just simply getting into that place, this was the first time in almost 2 years that I was actually able to talk to a Wells Fargo attorney. Even the attorney that I hired and spent $450 an hour was unable to get to a Wells Fargo attorney. An attorney could not talk to an attorney until a lawsuit was filed. That's the way Wells Fargo plays their game.
Right. Real tough.
Completely obstruct you
Yeah.
from reaching anyone until you
Right.
file an actual lawsuit.
So now you're telling me that since you filed against Fidelity National Title and they did not respond, you were able to file a default judgment, if you will, against them.
Well, I don't have a judgment yet.
Okay.
The first step is notice of default.
Notice of
in
default.
California State.
Okay. And now they've requested documents and they're going to try to negotiate the settlement. Is that pretty much it?
Right.
Okay.
I have to provide my evidence, and then there'll be most likely a hearing that will decide what the judge will rule is the actual amount of the judgment.
So that is a fabulous.
That's a great place to be, right?
That's a fabulous idea, guys.
Okay, you
Yes. Oh my goodness.
file both. And I'm also thinking I wanted to share too, I'm reaching out to an attorney, anyone on the call, and to everything, is that one of the most important things you can do is go to the bank and ask them for a full loan history. You want
Right.
entire accounting of your note. You want to know when you started your note, how much you paid, did they apply it properly to principal and interest, did they calculate the interest properly. Any defect in those documents is a cause for action.
Right.
And
Right.
and when I saw what they provided, first off, I have been paying on my note for 6 years. They only provided me with 3 years, which is a violation of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act.
Right.
They also violate the Truth in Lending Act by not providing a proper accounting. There's a similar lawsuit that's based out of a parish in Louisiana, and a gentleman was awarded $1.8 million by a judge because his loan contained so many errors.
Right.
The judge decreed that if the bank is there to loan money and properly apply payments, if it can't even do the
Do that.
basics,
Exactly.
then she was so furious. She said, "I'm awarding $1.8 million for all the other people that this bank has wronged."
And all the other people that have been wronged, which is like everybody in the country, needs to get together and file lawsuits against these banksters.
She actually requested that of the 200 mortgages that she was aware of that were issued by this particular bank, I won't say the name, that she went to her parish and she said, "I want to go ahead and bring in this accounting firm, and I want to have them sample at least 200 of the mortgages in my parish." And then the accounting firm did a sample of 10%. So that was 20 mortgages, and all 20 contained significant errors.
Of course. Why would just one person be cheated? Come on. They're going to, if they're that sloppy, they're going to do it to everybody. And it's just like on securitization. They're going to secure one, they're going to secure 72 million.
That's why if someone would join me on this lawsuit, this would open up for a civil lawsuit, and it would be fairly easy to construct. I'm not a lawyer, but it makes me at this point wish I was one, because you could actually request, let's say, tens of thousands of people to pull their mortgage documents, and whatever they receive from the bank would become the basis of a much, much larger multi-billion-dollar lawsuit for their inability to do the basics, which is to apply principal and interest and to calculate interest properly.
Right. That's a very interesting idea. What about your comment just made me think of something. What about this? What if, we took a survey or people just said, "I'm with Wells Fargo, I'm with B of A," and we just categorized them into these bank categories, and they all did the qualified written request, which I think a lot of people are doing, demanding the entire loan document file. And we literally just sort of had, home parties where all the people with B of A, they could just join together, maybe even on a conference call, and they could look through their documents together to find these problems. And then if we had an attorney filing a lawsuit for them, does that sound like it even has any possibility?
You will not most likely get the entire loan history, which is the easiest way to show that they violated the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. There's also possible pieces underneath the Truth in Lending and the Frank Dodd bill that was passed last year. So it's fairly easy with one phone call to your bank to get into a place where you now have actual serious evidence against the bank that they didn't do what they were supposed to be doing.
Right. This needs more exploration.
The easiest charge you can make in a lawsuit in regards to what's happening with the banks, in my opinion.
This is and
Putting
just like
them on the run.
Absolutely.
Putting them on the descent.
Absolutely. This is just like what Ronald was saying. We just need to keep the push up. We need to push these people. Nancy's explaining that it's so vital to get the entire loan history from them. They're the servicers. They claim lenders, but they're at least the servicers, and they have that information. They need to give it to us. And each individual, and we need to understand where the problems are. I know that Lorraine has done this. She's in Pennsylvania, and we've talked to her about her lawsuits. And she's actually showed us where the mistakes were in some of this documentation that she got from the bank. And I'm sure, Nancy, you've been doing that too then, if you included those as in your complaint.
Accounting professor, I can only say that what they provided was unable to be deciphered. I literally could not work with even trying to construct of the 3 years that they provided. I had a trial mortgage payment during a point in 2009 where I lost my job. and those payments just sit out in a suspense account, which is a violation of law.
Right.
And
Right.
instead of applying them to principal and interest, they apply them only to interest. At the
Right.
end of the day, that's the only thing I could figure out.
And that's a violation
Very
too.
good.
Yeah.
I honestly, I have practically a PhD. I'm a PhD candidate in finance. I could not determine was the garbage that they sent to me. I mean, it's actually so unbelievable when you see the documents because they're such an unbelievable mess.
Right.
Interest was miscalculated. The payments were misapplied. The principal and interest were not separated properly. The fees that they pack in, I was astounded by the extraordinary amount of just generic fees without even a label. Just says statutory fee.
Just a fee. Oh my goodness. Well, see, this is what we need to find out for all of our loans.
You won't believe it. You won't
Yes.
believe it until you ask for it. They won't provide you the entire history, and it'll be practically unable to be determined. I'm frightened to think that the banks are doing this to everybody because
They are.
And I didn't even think until I was in the middle of this. You just send your payment in and you trust that the bank is doing the right thing,
That's right.
and they're not.
Yeah. Millions, almost 100 million of us are doing that. And this is the problem. They are not. Oh, Nancy, thank you for sharing. Oh, we really wish you the best of luck. And again, if anyone knows of an attorney or you're an attorney and you want to help with this, contact me. I can pass you on to Nancy so that we can actually get her the help that she needs. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nancy. We sure appreciate your sharing.
Okay? Everything is public.
Yep. And you've told us how we need to move forward. We need to get that information. Every owner needs to get that information for themselves. Even if you haven't stopped making payments, go get that loan file. See how they've been screwing it up for you already, I swear.
Right, even if you're current, even if
Exactly.
you have no problems.
Exactly, because
You'll be astounded. You'll be astounded.
and we already know that a lot of people are pushed into foreclosure intentionally because of the bank servicer screwing around with not applying the monies to the principal, taking out fees in advance that it's illegal, all kinds of things, and then the person's in arrears and they don't even know it. This is just truly an outrage.
They call it a rolling default.
Right.
Have one payment that was missed way back when, and
Right.
it sets you off into a status of default that you never can recover from.
And of course, the bank makes a fee every month on it. That's why they do it. It's just so amazing. Well,
It's time to ask for the documents.
exactly. Thanks, Nancy, for sharing that with us. We so appreciate it.
Welcome.
And keep us updated on how that works.
I will.
Okay. All right. Just a couple more things then before we go, guys. I really wanted to point out again the bank Petaluma Parade, the Bankster float. Here it is again as a picture. The crew is meeting at 8:30 on Saturday in Petaluma, and they'll meet at the 4th Street between H and I streets. So, and they are actually float number 131. So hopefully if you have some time, can get there in the morning, help them finish up the float. That would be really helpful. And then, like I mentioned, that they're going to pull the float with people in chains. And the bankster is a puppeteer, and he's going to be controlling congressmen and justices, and evidently these lines are going to have dollar bills on them. I think it's a really good float that needs to be expressed. A lot of Occupy people, evidently 30 or 40, is what last number I heard, are planning to follow along in the float. So I hope to live stream that. It'll be my first real on the street practice. And if you have a chance, you can follow along with us on live stream, or you can watch it archived later. And I may be starting and stopping. I don't really know how it's going to work out. But anyway, we just thank everybody so much for the update today. Renee couldn't join us. We'll talk about securitization next week. Oh yes, and one last thing. Lorraine did, she's got a brother in the hospital, and our prayers and hearts go out to her and him. But she did write me some answers. She responded to the request from yesterday. And if you remember from yesterday, these poor people, they happen to be in Oakland, have been in loan mod hell for 4 years. Their payments have skyrocketed to $4,500. They were told to keep making the $2,800. The discrepancy is growing. They were turned down for a modification from the National Modification Settlement. SPS is basically jerking them around. And this is what Lorraine writes from her experience. She says, number one, she says to make no more payments. That's something that the homeowner is going to have to decide. But nevertheless, she says definitely send a qualified written request letter to the servicer. Explain that you're disputing the debt. Make sure that they send you an itemized statement. Does that sound familiar? Nancy just said demand the entire loan statement. Ask for proof from this servicer, Lorraine continues, that the servicer has the rights to service the loan. They got to prove that to you. She also mentioned, did the loan number change? It's a question she asked. If so, she's claiming that that means fraud. The servicer cannot say you owe a debt under a different loan number. This could mean identity theft as well. Get a copy of your credit report and see if the old loan number shows paid in full by the new servicer. That is fascinating. Are you listening? Because literally every one of these banksters have sold off, they claim, the servicing rights. So B of A to Ocwen, Green Tree, all of these SPS, all of these servicers now have the rights to collect. Was that actually a payment of the loan? So she's suggesting we all check our credit reports for that. That's a very fascinating comment. Thank you, Lorraine. She says, number 5, itemized statement. Get an itemized statement from day one to the present day. You must get this from each servicer. So for these folks that were calling me, I think they started with, I can't even remember who it was, B of A, and it had been sold 2, 3, 4 times. So they're going to need to find each one of their loan statements and demand a full history of the loan payment from each one of those different servicers. She says, make a spreadsheet that has a date, the amount, the issue for each payment that was not credited or added late fees, and gather the evidence that you would attach to your complaint. She asks, was the note securitized? Probably. In my humble opinion, if it's being serviced by SPS, almost 100% it was securitized. And then who now owns that? If it's a trust, which one? And definitely you need to get that pooling and servicing agreement, which we've already talked about on one of the foreclosure defense workshops. And was the assignment done according to the PSA, the pooling and servicing agreement? And of course, what she's now recommending is that they review their foreclosure documents. Are there robo-signers, fake notaries? Who are these people, fake beneficiaries, that kind of thing. And then she said the next thing, a person filing a complaint, whether it was this owner or all owners, find court cases that are in your state you can use as precedents, find good federal cases as well. So that's something that, we could do. I know you guys are watching and I'm talking to myself as much as I am to everybody. We could start collecting these cases that people could use in their complaints. That would be a super help. And I could make just a simple web page saying, cases by state for your complaints that would support the homeowners. That's a really great idea. I think we need to pursue that too. See, one show, we've got 3 things we've got to do. Another thing Lorraine says is to check out anything that servicer has filed in court and check for fraud. Find their names, addresses of the parties. And she's pointing out that they lied in hers, and so they're going to lie in yours too. Check the title insurance policy for your property. Go after the notary bond if you have a fake notary. File a complaint with the OCC and the CFPB, Consumer Protection Bureau. Learn how to file a small claims court matter if you don't want to sue in the regular court system. And that's another thing that we ought to be doing is small claims. If you can't find a good attorney, go pro se. Try to learn how to do that. It's just like what Nancy was saying. She could actually figure that out. It will take a lot of time. And I'm really trying to get others to join us with good attorneys, because really, if we could get some kind of standardized complaints or relatively strong filings that are fairly similar for a bunch of owners, then it would be cost effective for attorneys to take on these jobs. Join groups like Homeowners for Justice, Facebook groups like hers, sue the lender. Like Ronald said, let's sue the foreclosure trustee attorneys personally. Contact the senator, congressman. The point is, this is a really big full-time job, but these are things that can really help. So we thank the people for contacting us. We hope that you will share the good information. There are people that are fighting tooth and nail to keep houses, to keep people in their house, to stop the fraud, to stop foreclosures. And we really, again, appreciate all the help everybody has been. So that's it for today. We're going to have to sign off. We're busy on the weekend doing the parade. Join us for some of these events. If you find that you've got some time, we'd really, really greatly appreciate your support. And everything you do every day, let's be sure that we bugger the bankers, the politicians, and the bureaucrats. See you next week.
When I was a lass, I was proud of me class, like my father and mother before me. They taught me to fight for my civil rights, but it's always the same old story. The rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream, under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're measured from every direction. The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax.
with nary a moment's reflection. Where there's brass, there's muck, and they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you. Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent by loitering